Welcome back. We are here for another car cast. This time it's a wife cast. Hey, wife.
Hey, husband.
We recently went to my family in West Virginia's, or we recently took a trip to see my family in West Virginia around Easter. That was a few weeks back. And we had the interesting experience. So this was right before the eclipse, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we had the interesting experience of hearing all of the Southern dispensationalist Christian networks talk all about eclipse stuff and just general dispensationalism stuff. And we had these radio stations on in the car just for the heck of it and heard some outrageous stuff. And so I thought that we could talk about some of the stuff that we heard. So I grew up in dispensationalism, of course. I've talked about that before. But you somehow have seemed to avoid it. So, it doesn't seem like it's influenced you much. So what kind of dispensationalism have you been exposed to throughout your life or growing up, if any?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is what you mean exactly, but I had family that read the Left Behind books.
Yeah.
And would give those to me to read and
Really?
Yeah.
Your aunts or
One of my aunts was
Interesting.
real into that, yeah.
Weird.
But I just don't remember.
Did you read them?
Yeah. Yeah, I read several of them at some point. Probably elementary school, middle school.
Elementary school.
Maybe middle school, somewhere.
Did you think
there.
that that's really how things were going to work, even back then?
No, I think it sounded silly.
Why did it sound silly? Okay, so
The idea of oh, you're on an airplane and all of
then
a sudden, poof, the person next to you is gone or you're gone and your clothes are neatly laid there. They're folded perfectly, sitting on the airplane seat.
Well, if the dispensational view of the rapture is true, then that's exactly what would happen. You just in the blink of an eye, poof,
Yeah.
you're gone, and then your clothes are left behind, along with all of the people who are deceived by the aliens. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So one thing we can talk about the Israel ad later.
Oh, yeah.
But one of the craziest things that we heard, and I kind of want to do another podcast, maybe just on this, but maybe we'll just talk about it here. But there was some speaker who talks a lot about the rapture, and I was enthralled. Of course, I was like, I gotta hear where these people are coming from. And so this guy was talking about aliens. It's two of my favorite things: hate watching dispensationalism stuff and paranormal stuff. And so what he was saying was that, and I actually agree with this. He's like, there are all these paranormal experiences and quote unquote alien encounters or whatever, but these aliens, they are the vast majority of these UFO encounters and alien encounters are verifiably false, but a very small percentage of them are in fact verifiable, and they are witnessed by multiple people and whatever. But they are demonic in nature. And a fun fact, I was talking with somebody from our church recently about this. A lot of personal UFO encounters, or people, he was this dispensationalist guy on the show was talking about how there was some medium or psychic or somebody who could channel aliens from other worlds. I think maybe you were asleep during that in the car, but
Possible.
she was channeling an alien, quote unquote, from another world, and it got religious. This alien started teaching about who Jesus really was. It's always these abduction stories or channeling aliens kind of thing, or an alien visited me in a dream kind of thing. Is more often than not, it seems it goes into a religious direction. And what this guy was saying, and I agree with this, is that these demonic entities are trying to deceive people. And he recognized this, but I think that he is the one in addition to the people who think they're real aliens, I think he is actually also deceived by these demonic entities. Do you remember any of this?
Not so much that.
Okay. Well, so what happened was he was saying that that a lot of these aliens, quote unquote, are telling people that, and this maybe is over the past 20 or 30 years, and he was saying that these aliens are telling people that there's going to be what he called a mass abduction. You remember this now? He was saying there's going to be a mass abduction where the aliens are going to take a bunch of people off of the planet and they're going to go live on their alien world. And if the people who are left want to, I don't know, like be cool with the aliens, like they have to follow what the aliens say, and this kind of ties into the dispensational new one world government kind of thing. But the idea is the aliens are like confirming, quote unquote, that the rapture is going to happen, because the aliens are saying like there's going to be this mass abduction. And then the guy was like, that's the rapture. You see, so the aliens, they're trying to trick people by saying it's not the rapture, but it's the abduction. And so I was listening to this and I was like, dude, these demons are fooling you, you dummy.
Yeah.
There's not gonna be a rapture like you think there is. And this guy was a premillennial dispensationalist, pre-tribulation rapture kind of guy, and thought that people were gonna poof and their clothes were gonna be left behind, and then the aliens are gonna come and they're all gonna be demons dressed up like little green men, and it's like, no, dude, they are fooling you. Like the demons are going along with this narrative of the rapture because it's so effective at deceiving people. It's like that's the way I saw that. And so I thought it was a really interesting talk that I heard. I don't remember the guy's name or much else. And then, and then after that, they started playing a show where there was a woman preaching. And I was like, okay, just yet more confirmation that these people care absolutely nothing about the Bible. They're trying to take the Bible literally, and then it's like, well, except for that part about women preaching, that doesn't matter. Sheesh. So tell us about that commercial that we heard.
Yeah, there was...
So you have never heard anything like this before?
No, I was shocked.
I have, but you haven't.
Yeah, there was a commercial where they're asking you to send in money to this organization to help them, like, collect Jews and fly them back to Israel.
Collect Jews, by the way. Collect Jews from other countries. So, like,
yeah,
a Jew, like, Jerry Seinfeld.
Jewish people who are living in America or wherever.
They want to send Jerry Seinfeld to a war zone. And why?
So that Jesus would come back.
Because
we got to get all the Jews back to Israel so
yeah.
Jesus will return.
Because for whatever reason, they think I'm sure there's some random Bible verse somewhere that they take out of context and say that like every Jew has to be back in Israel before Jesus comes back. And once they're all back in Israel, Jesus is going to come back. Forget all the other stuff about the knowledge of the glory of the Lord filling the earth like the waters cover the sea, or forget about the temple being... the Ezekiel temple vision being fulfilled. It's like, somebody brought up a really interesting point about horses. There's a verse in Revelation that implies that before Jesus comes back, there's going to be something like 100 million horses. There's an army, and this army has 100 million horses, and then it's like, I looked up how many horses there were in the world. And there's 60 million horses, and so it's like, whoa, we're a long way off. We're just like barely halfway there.
Yeah.
And so if we want Jesus to come back, we got to get all the Jews in Israel, and we gotta breed horses. So if you really want Jesus to come back, you got to be a horse breeder. If you're a dispensationalist who has accidentally stumbled onto this podcast, you got to go buy a farm and start breeding horses, right? Because that's what God wants you to do. God wants you to send Jews into a war zone to die, but get terrorists to kill them and breed horses. Because
And
that's
somehow
what
that
God
was all
wants.
supposed to happen before the eclipse.
One of the many reasons why dispensationalism is absolute nonsense. But we got tons of this stuff. I mean, it is all over the South. And I was talking with another person from our church, and he said something like, the South was full of Presbyterians early in American history. And then he said something like, they all died in the war. and so like the weirdos were the people who were left over, the people who didn't fight and die in the war, and Presbyterianism kind of died off and was replaced by wacky dispensationalism that just saturated that part of the country. It came out of the Northeast. It came out of the kind of like the New York area, and then just spread through the Bible Belt and into the South. And it's there to this day, and it's crazy, wacky nonsense. Like a lot of people who I know, like a lot of my family, myself, I was impacted by this. I grew up going to churches with dispensationalism. But how many people do you remember in the church that you grew up in kind of took that stuff seriously? I can't imagine it ever being brought up very much.
No, I don't think it really came up.
Were the end times ever really preached on, as far as you know?
Not that I really remember.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And now I would assume, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that the reason for that, well, either because he just didn't have an opinion on it, which I doubt that. I doubt that the pastor didn't have an opinion.
Right.
I would assume it was just to be ecumenical, like he didn't want to say anything that people disagreed with, which is why they're in the position they are now, that church.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah, that's probably true. I don't know for sure, though.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, yeah, I just wanted to share kind of our weird, wacky experience with dispensationalism. This stuff is real, and it's, some people are going to say, they've said this before, like, well, that's not real dispensationalism. Okay, define dispensationalism for me. Tell me what it is. People have told me that 100 times. They're like, you got to read Charles Ryrie, and then I did, and they're like, well, that's not real dispensationalism. You got to read Schofield. And I was like, okay, I'll read Schofield. I did that, and they were like, no, that's not real dispensationalism. You gotta read Darby, and I did that, and then I just stopped because I realized dispensationalism is just a mess, and there's absolutely no standard or authority in dispensationalism whatsoever. And people can take the Bible to mean whatever they want it to mean, and be entirely inconsistent with the text, which is why nobody is trying to be horse breeders. So, if you want to take the Bible seriously and you're a dispensationalist, be a horse breeder. That is the moral of the story. All right. Thanks for coming on the show, wife.
Of course, husband.
Catch you next time. God bless.